All right, this is a big one, folks. This is a big one. This is a big get. We went out there, Slaynville podcast, episode 4. We got Michael, one of the lead developers of Dura Online, which is a server, for you guys out there who don't know, about 30 times bigger than ours. So he's got about 30 times more experience doing this than I do, to say the very least. Hey.
Hello, hello.
Hey, how you doing? It looks like it's working.
Yeah, pretty well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing quite well. I never of the 3 interviews I've done so far, all 3 have been with people who I've spoken to previously. So this one is
of course. Yeah, we have not spoken before, so this is your first time hearing my terrible Australian accent.
well, no, I was excited for it actually. I wasn't quite sure if you were. I mean, at first, especially, like, I was remembering, and I'm thinking, oh well, does he have an Italian accent, or is he European? Or,
Right.
like, I didn't know, I forgot. But so I figured we could start with you telling us your name and the server you work for.
Sure, sure. So my name is Michael, and I work on the Dura project, which I have been since its launch. I handle pretty much everything related to their hosting, so all of their server management, all of the back-end automation, and I do a bit of the more interesting systems programming, things that take my interest.
Right. And real quick, the website there, I believe, is dura-online.com, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
All right, and I believe it's, yeah. I mean, I played it. It's free to play. All the normal wonderful things for all the people out there, if there are any, which there won't be. But so
Of course.
yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to ask is, like, I guess I'm gonna credit you as like this episode will be titled like Michael Dura Dev, because we're not gonna use your last name, and it's like whatever. Like, it'll just be, I don't know, whatever. And then so are you
Sure.
the original? Are you the owner of Dura? Are you what exactly is is there like a team of
Sure.
3
Yeah.
owners?
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's a good question. So I am one of the 3 owners of Dura. So the Dura was founded by a guy from New York, much like yourself, I believe. His name is Aris. So Dura is his baby, you might say. He's the captain of the ship. And there is one other core programmer. He goes by Zone. He's a Swedish guy. He's been on the team longer than I have, and he has coded most of the core systems that make Dura what it is. And closer towards their launch, that's when I came on board to actually handle the launching of the game and make sure everything runs smoothly.
Damn, that's cool. So it's really always been more than one person, even since, like, from at least from the moment of launch, there was a team of 3. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's right. So, and before that, even there was another developer, but unfortunately things didn't go well, and that developer departed. But Aris has always been the ideas man, you might say. He was the man with a vision
Hmm.
who wanted to make his vision a reality, but didn't have the technical skills to actually make it happen. So he went out there knowing nothing about OpenTibia, just with this vision, and he posted on OT Land looking for a developer to come on board with him, a developer who would, believe in his vision and have the skill to actually make it happen. And so yeah, they teamed up, and before I even came on board, they pretty much developed the whole base, like, core product.
Damn.
And they started sort of hyping it on OT Land. They made a post. They were talking about it, talking about the vision, what they'd already done, and that caught my attention. I thought, you know what, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I'd love to get involved with that. And so yeah, I reached out, and here we are, sort of 3.5, 4 years later.
So 3.5, 4 years later. Wow. So I'm curious, how old you are, and like what other
Sure.
projects maybe you worked on before all this madness.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am 33 years old. Before I joined on with Dura, I had mostly worked on like smaller private servers hosted in Australia. That's where I was originally from.
Hmm.
So wasn't particularly well known back then. Um, hadn't done anything that's really noteworthy for a global audience. However, I did develop a sort of my own distribution, you might say, based on the Forgotten server, which was called originally Simple War OT, which then became the Forgotten War server, which was a distribution developed specifically so that people could host their own war OTs.
Hmm.
And that became very popular and had a very good reception. So I developed that for a few years before just losing interest.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. Is there anything? So, is all of the programming work you've ever done like Tibia related, or is there like a boring banking career that came before that or something?
No, it's really all Tibia related. As a result of it, I have actually gone on to do other development work, like some web development work, just as on a contract basis.
Hmm.
But I don't love that sort of thing. My actual career is in the construction industry, like completely different. I enjoy everything that is open Tibia mostly as a hobby, and I don't really do it for any sort of profit. Um, but yeah, my actual career totally different.
That is very interesting. So you work with your hands 9 to 5, or you work in construction,
No.
meaning you do sales?
Yeah, I work behind a computer, so I work in the more design and engineering side of things. So using sort of CAD programs, BIM programs, if you're familiar with them,
Do you
to
design
actually do
closets?
structural designs of houses.
That's that kind of makes sense actually. I can understand because I come from a world of working with Unity 3D, which is extremely similar to
Right. Yes.
just CADing and scripting. Um, that is very interesting. So you're 33 years old. So what year? So let me try to guess your first Tibia. If you were 33,
Cool.
then your first Tibia was probably somewhere right in the range of 7.4, which I believe is what Dura is based on, right?
Yeah, so that's very accurate. So I actually started in 2001 originally, which I think was around the 7.1
Mm-hmm.
era. But I was too young and too stupid to actually play the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I started Tibia, I failed, and I moved immediately to RuneScape, which I believe had just launched around the
That's
same
funny.
time as I started Tibia.
I
And
have a similar story, very much like a few years earlier, where it's like
right,
I played Tibia 5, but it didn't actually play Tibia regularly until like I
yes.
had put it down and then come back to it later.
Yeah. It's crazy. I basically I tried it, put it down, played RuneScape for a couple of years, and then came back to Tibia in I believe 2004,
Mm-hmm.
or it might have been a bit earlier, maybe 2003, and then I was actually properly playing, like trying to win by 2004.
You know what's funny is that you're saying that this person you work with is from New York. It's like there is a 0% chance that I'm not like 1 degree of separation away from that person. They're probably from my town.
It's entirely possible. Yeah.
Because my town is like the New York town for Tibia, so it's probably like my cousin's,
Right.
friend, like
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, maybe when we
we'll
get off
see.
the public portion of this interview, we can see if we can work that one out.
We'll see. I'm very interested. Okay. Oh, here's the easy one. Is what's your favorite programming language for the nerds?
My favorite programming language, it's got to be Lua because it's the only language that I could actually claim to know to any level of completeness.
No, you wrote
Um,
some dope bash scripts for me.
oh yeah, no, sorry. I get into some hardcore bash scripts. So if we're counting bash, yeah, fantastic.
Bash counts. I've been following this guy on Instagram whose his handle on Instagram is "You suck at programming," and his whole thing is just telling you suck at Bash and that you should do everything in Bash. But
It's crazy. I actually do everything in Bash, and it annoys people because I then show them this madness of Bash scripting that I've done, because I do all of my server automation in Bash. I could write it in Python, I could write it in Lua even, but I do it in Bash, and people hate it. It's fantastic.
I have like 5 Bash scripts total, one of which I sent you with the passwords in it.
Yeah, good times.
But the only ones I have are I have one that just like does git pull and rebuilds.
Yes.
And then the one that runs the server runs that. So
yeah, excellent. Yeah, good setup.
It's no, we won't bore the users with me with my troubleshooting. I skipped. What did I want to ask next? So how long? Oh, what's your? Yeah, this is one of my favorite questions. Is what is your favorite feature of Dura in terms of like as a developer developing it? Like,
Right.
most proud.
Okay. So my actual favorite feature of Dura has yet to be released. It's currently in testing.
Yeah.
So I can talk a little bit about that, because if there's
Right.
any users who listen, it'll give them a little bit of a hype of what's to come.
Nice.
So probably 2 years ago, I wrote this rework of the Dura ambush system. And just for those who don't know, all throughout Dura, you might be interacting with the world, and suddenly you'll be ambushed by creatures. So that might mean like you've been lured by a shiny little piece of gold on top of a chest, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go open that chest. So you open the chest, and suddenly an orc leader has spawned behind you, and you're going to die. Fantastic, great system.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. I rewrote that system to be much more dynamic, so that the sort of thing that triggers the ambush isn't necessarily you stepping on a particular tile or you interacting with a particular object. But I wanted ambushes to be able to happen, if we designed it to, anywhere in the wild.
Right.
So you might be just walking through or walking the path between like Thais, whatever you want to call it, and Venor, and maybe you're going to get ambushed by some bandits. I wanted that to be able to happen completely dynamically and at any point, still, based on particular criteria. Anyway, I wrote the script sort of 2 years ago, and I never quite got it finished.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sat there in the wings, and we've sort of worked on it a little bit, and one of the other developers now has finished it while I was off getting married.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations, by the way.
It's ready. Oh, thank you. It is ready to be rolled out. So it's currently in testing on the test server. We're trialing it. We're writing the actual criteria for when these new ambushes are going to occur. And yeah, we're really excited to actually roll that out. And I'm really keen to see it in the game.
So the first thing that I thought about this was like just hearing you explain it, my mind is racing thinking about all the cool things that could happen. And so first I'm thinking about like, it's awesome if I'm like killing creatures and then all of a sudden there's more, I'm getting more experience. It's like positive.
Yes.
And then also I was thinking like if I'm AFK macroing or cheating, this is going to like throw a monkey wrench in my plans. This is like some kind of has like an anti-cheat factor to it. I really like it. This is great. I like anything that seems to like, I mean, Tibia, I think of even as a player, you're kind of like, we play it because the same reason we like programming is like because there's this like closed environment where you can kind of like create your own effect on the world. And
yes, absolutely.
When that world is more complicated and more dynamic, it makes me as a programmer player, it makes me have to do more work and think harder. And I just like stuff happening that isn't like within the normal confines of like the cycles that CIP created. Like I have a similar but opposite thing that I just created called the loot gnome, which is kind of like when you kill a creature, there's like a 1 in 10,000 chance or 1 in 1,000 chance of like this little gnome popping out of the dead body and running away, and it it doesn't actually do any damage to you. It's just like free gold, kind of. It's like a loot
Reminds me
goblin.
of, did you ever play Golden Axe, like when you were young?
No, is that like a NES
Okay,
game?
'cause it was like I think it released on Sega and a few other systems.
It
But
sounds familiar,
basically,
yeah.
at the end, you might have these tiny little, God, I don't know if they were gnomes or something else, but they'd run around, and you'd have to bash those to get the like mana out of them. I don't know. It's a fantastic game though, Golden Axe. Gotta play
Golden
it.
Axe. Sounds great. But I just like there being things that, like, I don't know, because I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a argumentative nature against the code and the process, but like doing all of the restoration and retro type work, where it's like, doing the downgrading, it gets tiring, and you just like over time more and more you're like, but what if I did something that was my idea, not like recreating some fucking thing that a guy thought of in Germany in 1999. Like, I get a little
Yeah,
bored
yeah.
with the monotony of recreating somebody else's thing that really wasn't that well thought out
I,
to begin
I
with.
couldn't agree more, and that's why I said like most of the development work I've done on Jira has been, systems that I find more interesting because I can't bear working on things that don't take my interest. It just won't happen. It's just not in my nature.
Yeah, I
But
know
if
the
you if
feeling.
there's a system that I'm truly interested in, I'm going to smash it out, and it's going to be fantastic. And yeah, that's that's just sort of how I work.
Yeah, it's hard to do. I know exactly what you mean. That is an ADHD symptom. Um,
Yeah, I think so.
oh, this is a good question. What is the wait? So maybe this is an irrelevant question, but and maybe you don't have to answer this either. But if Dura is based on the Forgotten server, then what is the craziest bug I should patch out of my server immediately?
Oh man.
You know what I mean? I don't know if the question makes
Yeah,
any
yeah.
sense.
No, 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 I absolutely know what you mean. Craziest bug that you should patch from your server. That's difficult to say because your server will be much newer than the version that Jura was based on. So Jura was built from Forgotten Server 1.3 and a very early build of it. And there were
Mm-hmm.
there were bugs found and patched in the sort of master repository of Forgotten Server. Things that might affect you, though, it'll really depend when you checked out your repo.
Like
I'm
February.
honestly not sure.
But
Yeah,
I
so
checked it
pretty
out.
recently.
But I checked it out from Nikiro. From the
Ah, okay.
so I'm
Yeah,
like,
from his downgrade, of
yeah.
course.
I mean, and really from that, the only thing I have is the source, and the source I've like significantly fucked with. So
Right, right. Okay, so I think one of the major things that may need attention in your server is are you using when you're throwing like small stones or spears, do they go to the ground on your server?
yeah,
Okay. Do they break or are they infinite?
they're infinite.
Okay. I think you're all good then. I can't remember quite what the criteria for the bug was, but when you're having items go to the ground from the hand, I think there was a scenario where if they also get destroyed, a sort of a null reference occurs and the server will crash.
Oh,
I can't quite remember exactly like how to replicate it. It was a serious edge case, and a lot
mm-hmm.
of people who ran these old school servers ran into this issue, and no one was able to fix it for a long time. I believe somebody did end up finding the solution. It might have been Ez. It might have been, I'm going to say this name wrong, Geyser, I can't remember.
Oh yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
patched it though,
The
and
AAC guy, yeah.
patch circulated. Yeah.
Um, I have speaking of because Geyser is a good lead into this. I have this question that's meant to be like a trick question because of the nature of open
Sure.
source,
Okay.
and the question is how many people have worked on Dura?
Okay. Heaps of people have worked on Jira. So there's the core leaders, which are myself, Aris, and Zone. But apart from us, there are currently probably 4 or even 5 active developers behind the scenes. who all contribute small pieces. There are probably 4 or 5 dedicated mappers who contribute bits and pieces, and even more people who design raids, ambushes, write lore, fill out books. There's honestly so many moving pieces to the Jura project, and that really has its pros and cons.
I'm so jealous.
Sorry, what's that?
I'm jealous. You know.
Oh yeah.
To anybody listening, slaynville is like 4 years behind Dura. It like in the best case scenario, we're 4 years behind you.
Sure. I mean, there are some really talented people working on Dura, including like I'm sure he doesn't need his name advertised, but we've got somebody who works for like Activision Blizzard. We've got somebody who runs a like 2 million subscriber strong YouTube channel, completely unrelated to Tiia. Lots of people working on the project, lots of seriously talented people, but bringing it all together cohesively, bringing it all together without things going wrong, can be a challenge.
How do you handle the distribution? Because one of the things I think about often is like how I could mitigate the risk of bringing people into the code base by opening up certain things for collaboration. But one of the problems I have is like, let's say I want to have somebody edit maps for me. It's like, it's a binary blob, so I can't diff what they send back to me. I have to, you know what I mean? So is there like a system where you copy paste something? Or
so that is probably your best bet without major changes, is that anyone who makes edits, you have them make it in a separate map and then you merge it in manually and like with great care. And there are functions in the map editor, Ramir's map editor. Shout out Ramir for making such a useful program for everybody.
Dude, it's crazy.
That you can sort of mask on and off like transparencies, and you can search for items and things like that. That can help, but man, I got to tell you, it's tough. The best thing that you could do, and Jura has not done this, but other servers have, is actually move to a Kipsoft-like sector system where the map is actually divided up into sectors, and if there are changes made, really, like, you can't quite get diff it because you still can't see exactly what the changes are, but at least okay, we've had changes in sector file, whatever. Let's go and inspect that sector and see what's changed.
Yeah.
A little bit better.
That's
further
crazy.
To that, there's programs that can interchange the OTBM file into a JSON file.
That's what I was going to say. Wouldn't that be the obvious answer? Is make it so you can create a diff?
Yeah, but if you think about, like, I think the JSON format is huge. Like, the map file ends up being massive. And prior to OTBM, there was an XML format as well. Again, searchable, fantastic, diffable. But OTBM,
I mean, just my
smaller file.
Just my XML files of spawns is 15,000 lines of XML or something. So,
Woo! Yeah.
So if it was for every tile, and then it probably a bit of data about that tile, maybe one line per tile would still be hundreds of thousands.
Not really suitable for a global Kipsoft map. It's just too big.
Yeah. Very interesting. What questions do I have? Oh, I like these questions. Is like on a scale of 1 to 10, how deplorable are your players, and as a result, how much do you feel the need to isolate yourself from them?
Okay, so it's a challenging question to answer because the core Jura players are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
However, and this is a big however, there have been periods of time where certain groups have appeared on the server who have caused a lot of issues. And as administrators, particular Aris and myself, for a long time, we were both too involved with the community. And so then when these disruptors would end up playing the game, we would be, too close to it, probably too emotional about it. And that resulted in a lot of stress and, you could even say heartache on our side. But generally
totally
speaking,
understand.
the community's been fantastic.
I mean, I feel like I could have said word for word every word you just said about myself.
I think in one of your previous interviews, you spoke about it briefly, about a situation recently where there was a particular team that you had to remove from the game, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that, when you make that decision, everybody's got their opinion about what you've done, whether it was good for the server, whether you saved it, whether you've killed it, whether it's a dead OT now because you've interfered. But as a fellow developer, I totally get it, and you've got to make those hard decisions.
Yeah, I felt like when you have a very, very, very small community, it just can't handle the type of what I would consider normal Tibia gameplay, which is like, everybody trying to dick each other over. But we had like 100 players, and it's like you can't just take 100 players and add in 20 shitbirds. The ratio is fucked. It'll just, yeah,
exactly.
And so, they also, we were in a time of testing where it's like the only people I was even interested in having on the server were people who are going to not only not bug abuse, but they're going to be going around looking for bugs, and they're there to report them to me.
Yes.
And if they're not able to like handle that, they're going to not only do that, but like try to piss off people because they found a bug, or like, it's like, I don't really have the time to manage you. So if you're going to make trouble, you're just going to be out of here like a school principal type thing,
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of that actually leads pretty well into a question I wanted to ask you, which is, what would you say your biggest challenge so far has been with slaynville, right from its sort of inception up to now, where you're dealing with the community and player disruption?
Well, for me, slaynville is a very interesting thing because I never meant to do any of this. A friend of mine has been begging me to do this for years. He'd been saying, and I always would tell him, like, no, dude, like, I looked into it. The most oldest retro thing that you can spin up quickly is like 7.9. You're not going to like it because all my friends quit at like 6.8. So I was like, you're not even going to like it. Like, they don't even know about characters animating. They only played the Tibia where you blip around the screen like chess pieces. And so I was like, it's not going to happen, dude. Like, and so for years and years, I was like, I'm not doing it because he knows I'm a professional game developer. And he would always just ask me to like boot it up and make it like 6. And I was like, you can't do it, dude.
Easy, man. Get it done.
But then, like I was semi-successful in developing games. I was able to be the lead engineer of the game AIM Labs, which became famous all over the world. And so I kind of had some time to dick around, And so then I started dicking around, and it was really like the third project I've been trying to get off the ground, making like my own game studio. But the first 2 were my ideas, so they sucked. And so I went with like, hey, what about an idea that has already worked? It was just a Tibia server. Yeah. But I didn't think about it that way. What it really was like, I'm just going to make this for my friends to play. But then I'm like, I'm pretty addictive with this, like with programming and game development specifically. So like until like by the time there were 50 players playing on slaynville, I was still telling people to not invite more people. And it was like growing against my will. It was only like 2 months ago that I was like, okay, I guess this is a business, because I got fired from my real job I don't know, I think it was a crypto scam fake company, but also I wasn't very good at my job because I was focusing on this.
Sure.
So
I mean, sucks, but sure.
yeah, I don't know. I was working for this game called Hometopia on Steam that got bought by some crypto scam company, and it was all very bizarre, but it doesn't matter.
Interesting. Okay, sure.
But the biggest challenge I've had is figuring out how to promote this product, which it has always been the same problem I have with every product I've ever tried to create. Tiia itself is already made, so from a programming standpoint, even though I don't know anything about web development, this is probably one of the easier projects I've ever worked on because it's already done.
Yeah, you're basically building off a ready to go product.
Yeah, when I was like, oh man, I need to have a website for this, and then 6 hours later, slaynville.com was up and running and you could make an account.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, this is crazy. The amount of work that's just done.
You don't have actually any web development experience? Like you couldn't just smash out some PHP if you needed to?
I could, but I wouldn't because, I mean, I don't think I've ever had a job where I had to use PHP specifically. I did
Sure.
I used to work for a company called LBI Software where we did like... I wrote all this web development software that was for comparing Major League Baseball players for their contract arbitration. Very complicated. Okay. But technically, it was a very specific, very complicated SQL tool. It was like, basically my entire job was to digest like 19-page long SQL statements. It was insanity. But what a world. So my big problem now, I guess there's two big problems I have. Is like I'm trying to figure out how to promote the product. It seems to grow on its own like a fucking virus, but not as a speed that I would like it to.
Of course. So that brings up a good question here. What about the legalities of hosting and developing open Tiia? Obviously, we are using copyrighted material. That's a bit of a legal non-gray area. But what's your opinion here? What do you think?
My opinion is twofold. One is I don't think about lawsuits the way normal people do. I think about them and I think a bit more realistic of a way, which is... there's no blood from a stone. They could try to sue me for my Abe Labs shares, but
just aren't high.
Exactly. So it would be ridiculous for CIP to sue me, of all people. Maybe if Slaynville 10 years from now eclipses not only every other OT, but also Tiia itself, then maybe we have a thing. But the other thing is that for the same reason that I think this podcast, quote unquote, is good for Dura and it's good for Slaynville, I think that the Tiia OT ecosystem, I think that the people who work at Sipsoft are wise enough to realize that the way it works is that people like Tiia or they don't like Tiia, and if they don't like Tiia, they're not
in the ecosystem.
Exactly. We are like, eventually we are likely to also shit the bed and scare our customers back into real Tiia as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that is absolutely the way that Sipsoft, never known how to pronounce that, to be honest. I think that's absolutely how they look at it. And I think they'd be smart to look at it that way.
And if they were to also ever get into a German courtroom, if I were to be in the hypothetical scenario where somehow I'm summoned into a German courtroom, which I consider to be more likely to be like a forgiving liberal court or whatever, however you want to put it. I think they would be like, the person on the other side of that courtroom would be like, okay, so let me get this straight. You stole half these sprites, and now after you've replaced the ones you've stolen, you're suing this guy for stealing the sprites that half of which you stole. You know,
Feels
it's
very hypocritical. Yeah.
I don't think that a judge would really want to hear it.
Just to bridge the gap there for anyone listening, what you're referring to there is Kipsoft starting out with all of Ultima's sprites, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like
Okay.
and half the shit in Slaynville, it's like the work I'm doing specifically is to go from the Sipsoft sprites to the Ultima sprites. So
Yeah, right. You're going backwards.
yeah, I downloaded a Tibia 4 sprite pack today because I have like a
Nice.
new I have like this thing I call the tar pit where there's like it's like a coliseum where you fight a bunch of creatures basically. And
Yes.
I want to have the creatures that spawn in there. They're like a tar pit cyclops, and then those have like the old school cyclops sprite because
Nice. Yeah.
it doesn't actually make any sense to like revert the animated creatures into unanimated creatures.
No, but there's definitely a distinct art direction difference between old school Tibia sprites and new school. And like Dura, for example, definitely tries to lean towards the more old school style. I personally wouldn't go back as far as the 4.0 sprites, but the art direction from the early game, I think, is far better than the new school, like more bright and fluffy. Like it was more dark and I don't know, it was just better in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually we just had a little bit of a mini controversy over this because one of the things I truly hate about like Tibia 7 and on is the like neon colored backpacks.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, where did they get the neon dye to make these things, you know?
It's just not authentic.
It's not authentico. So, yeah, and the other thing, I totally agree about the core group of players, the people who are in there every day. Those people are so awesome, and they're so into
Yeah.
not even just like playing, but also like they're just as into talking about the way it was and like, you know, the reminiscing and the nostalgia, and they're all so nice to each other. And then there's always just like one chaotic lunatic
Yes. Yeah.
per day, you know?
I mean, even in the core group, as great as they all are, they can be challenging as well. Like we have this one player, I won't name him, but every single time he dies, which is frequently, he'll message like every one of the admins. He'll create a support ticket. He'll be like, "Man, I just died. It's your fault. Like, please refund me." Like, and the your fault part will be different every time. It'll either be like the server lagged, or there was a bug, or like I couldn't heal myself for this reason. It's like, man, every single time, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's some things that as a developer you feel like the players are beating you into doing the wrong thing. Like we were talking about like we had this bug where the ping, it never showed you your ping. And so I fixed it so it shows you your ping. And so now it's like it's actually a problem. Now that they can see their ping, they're constantly reporting the server quote unquote lagging. But it's just their internet
interesting
connections.
you say that, because recently, and you'll notice other servers have done this as well. Dura historically always showed the ping, and people were historically hypercritical over any fluctuation in it.
Yeah.
So what we actually did with the release of a new client, which happened just a few months ago, is we got rid of the like actual ping counter and replaced it with the Kipsoft style circle, so colored circles instead. People don't like it, and they've been vocal about not liking it, but their vocality about not liking that is about 1/10 of their vocality about a fluctuating ping. It's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. And well, that's the thing is like as developers, it's so hard to figure out like what pisses people off, what pisses people off for a good reason, and differentiate both of those things from what pisses people off enough to make them quit versus what pisses people off enough to make them say they're going to quit, but they're not really going to. Those four things all look exactly the same.
They do. And something just on ping, there's a large group of people who will not play the server unless they have like under 40 milliseconds response.
Right.
And that's hard to achieve. Like our game.
They're called Americans.
East Coast USA. And so like everybody in Europe and everybody in Brazil all have greater than 40 milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know that anymore because now it's just a green circle or
Yeah.
an orange circle or whatever.
Do you know what I found absolutely amazing is this is like to any of you actual real gamers out there who don't just play Tibia, the settings in OTCCV, like there's a default ping at which the green circle turns to yellow and the yellow circle turns to red, and it's like, oh yeah, green is anything under like 1200 ms ping. And then yellow, and then it's just yellow. It's just yellow until like 2000, and then it's like, what the hell? What games are these?
Whatever you want. And what people should understand as well is that it is trivial for a developer to be like, oh, what's your real ping? 500? Oh, no, that's too high. 500 divided by 2. Okay,
Right.
now you've got a better ping.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You can literally display whatever number you want there. You can modify it, and other server owners have done this, and it's dirty, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna lie, you might as well just hide it. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
It is interesting. I think that, it's comforting to hear how ubiquitous it is across other products that are the same.
Yes.
The other challenge I have is like I have no idea. Like I've been trying to innovate new Tibia OT monetization paths for no fucking reason.
Right. Okay. Sure. Yeah, why not?
And because it's like you come out of the gate, it's like, okay, well, easy win for a new server that I don't know what the hell I'm doing with, or like in terms of how long I want it to last. It's like, okay, just make it free premium for everyone for always. And so I did that, and I was like, okay, well, to hold on to that as long as possible, it's like we'll try every other thing you could possibly try. And the only thing that we tried that worked really, really well was like for 20 or 30 or 40 or $50, you can like I'll just put a house somewhere on the map. And so people were super into being the one in control of editing the map, but that is like unsustainable.
Yeah, you can only do that for so long. Well, I can maybe give you some tips and sort of some very loose data from what we've experienced on the Jura project.
Okay.
Which would be sort of there is a premium account that you can buy on Jura.
Mm-hmm.
I think the cost of that works out at approximately $7 per month at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, depending on the quantity you buy, there are discounts there. But the majority of sort of money that comes through Jura is coming from the cosmetic items. So there are a range of different outfits that you can purchase on Jura. People love their outfits.
Really?
And probably more important is house decorations. Man, people on Tibia, they just love playing house. They love decorating a house. I know as in my much younger days of Tibia, I used to love decorating houses. And that hasn't changed, not one bit. So we sell a range of like different floor tiles that you can kit your house out with, tapestries, like just random decoration items. People love it. Like there's no in-game benefit to it. It's just all like making your house look pretty.
And you're saying that is a larger percent of sales than premium accounts?
70 to 80%. Yeah.
Wow, I would have not expected that.
No, but when you think about it, like, so let's say you're charging, I don't know what Kipsoft charges these days. Let's say it's $10 a month. It's probably a lot less. Like that's a good amount of income, like guaranteed, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But people love the microtransaction stuff when they can justify it against like, this is the cost of a coffee today. Like I just won't buy the coffee. And suddenly they've bought 250 coins, and now they can buy the tapestries and the floor tiles that they want. Or maybe like there's all sorts of stuff on Jura. You can put a tree in your house if you want to, because people are willing to spend a couple of dollars for a tree. And
Right.
when everybody is doing that, keep up with the Joneses, have the prettiest house. Yeah, it really adds up, and it adds up quickly.
Damn. I would have guessed closer to 50-50. Yeah, skins are like the one thing that I've tried to push, but people just, I don't know. I guess you really need to have more players for skins. Skins gain value exponentially as the size of the yeah.
Skins is obviously huge. You see that in like most other games, modern games. Like I assume skins are like what are paying for everything.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. I mean,
when you see like the most expensive virtual item to ever be sold was like a Counter-Strike skin on an AK. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, I've seen. I think there's a YouTube video where they talk about like the most expensive digital items, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars for like a blue knife. I don't hate on it. I think it's cool. I've spent. I mean, I've used to play Rust a lot, and so I definitely did. It gets it crazy,
game.
Dude. It's so toxic. Rust is the spiritual successor to Tibia. I could do a whole podcast just on that.
I'm sure that it is. I feel exactly the same. I've played a fair bit of Rust myself. I actually can't play it anymore because I actually get too angry playing the game. It makes me like I have an internal rage if like some 13, 14-year-old kid manages to kill me and he is just screaming the whole time he does it. I have a deep internal rage that just makes me want to like throttle my computer on my desk. I just can't handle it, so I can't play the game anymore.
Yeah, Rust is kind of what got me into running the Slaynville server because I worked with a lot of Rust server owners. I built like a big stats platform for all the different servers to use to like track their Rust stats. And so I was very familiar with like networking with all the different server owners. That's kind of how we got into this podcast, you see?
Yes.
Because it's the same kind of thing, and it's coming from that world where those players and those people are all so much more toxic. I was like, I used to work with this guy, Nico, who ran this company called Vital Rust. And it's like all these different Rust servers are like, putting out these YouTube videos where they're calling each other jerks and idiots and ugly words, and they're DDoSing each other, and they're, Nico's lies exposed, and then the other server with the video, and it's like, I don't want I'm way too old for that kind of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, the Rust server hosts and like that community is pretty crazy. I've had some exposure to it myself. The hosting company I used to host Dura on was Tempest. A lot of the big Rust servers run their servers on Tempest because the attacks between servers were so huge. Like even the likes of OVH and the other big hosting providers could not handle it. They had no choice but to move to Tempest. And although Tempest is more expensive, they have these filters in place specifically for games like Rust. And some of the, let's just call it banter that went on between server hosts is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. And that was when I was watching Joe Rogan, and I was thinking, this guy's an idiot, but his whole point of view is, his whole thing, like this is, my wife always says to me, whenever she sees me watching Joe Rogan, she's like, I've just watched for 5 minutes. I didn't hear a single fucking joke. How is this guy even considered a comedian? It's just like a high guy staring off into the distance. But but my point is, without really telling, without even telling many jokes, this guy became the most famous comedian in the world. And he did that not by competing with all the other comedians, but by inviting them on his show and being nice to them, because he knew that making comedy cool was what worked for, I don't know. I think there's a metaphor there.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there is. That whole podcast to me, it feels like, people hanging out. That's what it is. It's just, people who are I can't think of the words I want here. It's just people. Yeah, no, I don't have the words, but I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I hope that you know, maybe people can like to listen about development, you know, like people like to listen to podcasts for people to talk about doing stuff, not actually to like, I don't know.
Yes. So
um,
I've got another question for you actually.
Go for it.
So I've seen it. I've seen it. I've heard you talk about it just a little bit, and I've seen your screen name, your alias, Uncle Cell Phone. Tell me, what is Uncle Cell Phone? Who is Uncle Cell Phone?
So it's just
What is it?
it's just a name, but it comes from I had this job and there was this guy who used to always walk around and pace around and he would always be singing that Drake song that is like, they used to call me Uncle Cell Phone. And I always thought he was saying they used to call me Uncle Cell Phone, and so that just stuck into my head as this name. And so then it became,
I'm never gonna hear that the same again.
yeah, it just became this name, Uncle Cell Phone. I have a couple names. The other one that I'm really fond of is Karl Marxman is my favorite of all time.
Yeah. Nice.
That's what I use in Rust because it's like I don't even want it to be associated with me as a person in real life, you know?
You're just a different person on that game.
Yeah.
You're just toxic fucking scum on that game.
No, I'm super nice to people on that game. It's because it's funny to be nice to people. It's also nice. It's also really funny to like pretend you don't understand why the other people, like, be surprised by the other people being horrific. You know, be like, hey, what the hell, man? It takes them off guard. But yeah, Karl Marxman, Uncle Cell Phone. That's MBHR is also a nickname because H is not actually my real middle initial. It's a fake middle initial because it's like it's a little too personal, you know, to have all three.
On that note, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage here. I don't actually know your name.
Oh, my name is Brendan. I should have started
Brendan.
with that.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic.
Sorry about that. I should have started with that. So what do I got? I got so many facts.
I should have
here.
asked first, but it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're already.
That's your name.
Yeah, there's so many names you're presented with here. Because it's BHR, it says on Discord, and then Epic in the other one, and then Uncle Cell Phone,
Yes.
and then it's ridiculous. I don't know. It's a problem. Like I probably should have been better about just picking one thing. And I also think having a character, like, I'm actually fairly strict about the things that I allow people to name themselves, except for Uncle Cell Phone, which is just mine. It's bullshit. But it's just like, I haven't changed it because now it's confusing if I do.
I've been running the same Steam name for a long time. It's got nothing, like, generally in the online world, I just go by Michael. It's just convenient. But my Steam name's been the same for like 15 years.
But what are you, do you have like a god or GM character on Dura, and does it have a name?
Yeah, it's just God Michael.
Damn.
Yeah, I haven't gone by like a pseudonym for a long time. My most recent like Tibia character name was Hey Mickey, which I think is a great name. But other than that, no.
Interesting.
My Steam name though, that's Hot Stuff Coming Through. That's different.
Just to give you a sense of the difference in scales that we're working with between Dura and slaynville, I'm going to tell you my system for name locking.
Sure. I mean, to be fair, Dura's system is awful for name locking, but go ahead.
Mine is 100% manual, and it only involves like if I see the person or somebody tells me a name, or like I see it, most likely I see it in the online list and I'm like, that name is ridiculous. And then what I do is I open up Chrome and I Google these three words: orc name generator. And then I pull that up. And then I keep clicking refresh until it gives me the stupidest fucking name I can find. And then I go directly into the PHP MyAdmin and I just change their name while they're online.
Yeah. Okay. So Dura is basically exactly the same, except depending on depending on how good we're feeling, we may actually just ban the player straight up. Like
Right.
we'll ban them and we'll write in the ban comment, like subject to name
Right.
change.
Yeah. That is. I do think that probably I definitely can ban and kick, and I have a custom jail I made, but I do think I can also name lock. There's like a separate function in TFS that has that, but I don't even think I've never tested the part where they would then go online and change it themselves.
Right.
To be unlocked.
Probably functions quite fine.
It probably does, yeah.
I've done what you've done is when the name was like particularly terrible, and I just wanted to get it changed immediately. Like if it was like seriously racist or like
it's always some variation of the same word. The same one word seems to be their favorite.
Yeah.
Speaking
so
of,
been a few times where I've changed while they're online, and you just have to sort of like kick the player, quickly change it in the MySQL or whatever, and then they're good to go.
Well, just in case there's any Australian people who make it this far into the discussion, I made sure to look up some Australian things, and I was very disturbed to find out that Chris Lilly has been canceled. And is no longer.
Been canceled?
Apparently, Netflix canceled like all of his shows have been ripped off of Netflix. Like, there's no more We Can Be Heroes, Jonah from Tonga, Summer Heights High. All of them were ripped off at the same time because of essentially an American political controversy.
Incredible. I was not aware. It's not overly surprising though.
And he looks like dog shit, I will laugh. So a picture of him, he looks terrible. But, I also saw a lot of proud, happy Australians sending him loving messages saying, hey, we know you're not a racist. Because he did like some blackface or something, because obviously he does all the different, he plays 32 characters, including a young brown boy named Jonah from Tonga.
Yeah.
But it seems that he has decided to go off and just live in privacy, and he looks like he's going to drive his BMW to his summer home about it. So I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It's been about an hour. I think we got to all of my pertinent questions.
Sure.
I say we call it quits, and I was thinking I'm going to try to get in. I want to squeeze out of you in the next coming days, like just any other contacts with other server admins I could do the same thing with, and hopefully Aris as well. I want to get in a few other non-Dura people, and then I want to come back to interviewing Aris, because I think that'll set up an arc,
Yes, I think Aris would be a good person to interview. He's got such a mind for game development and the direction he wants to go in, and he's very, very passionate about what he does. So yeah, I think that would make a great interview. Awesome. There's actually another. Honestly, he could be from New York. I'm not sure. There's another American developing a completely different project out of the same client and engine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's called starborn.app. If you like space-related things, it's worth checking out. You load in and you are a spaceship, and you fly around in space and you upgrade your spaceship, and it's super deep. So if you like a super deep RPG space experience, it's doing some very interesting stuff.
Oh, wow. I'm looking and already and my mind is blown. This is like the exact type of shit that I want to I wish I could just spend all day looking at cool Tibia OT projects, Yeah.
The owner of that, I think, I haven't spoken to him too much, but he also just seems like the sort of person who's just super passionate and involved with what he's doing, and is thinking about things on a level that I just don't. It's so deep. I think he'd be really cool to interview.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to squeeze that and more names out of you, and then we'll get more Dura Dura dash, like the dash, Dura-online.com
Yes.
for the Dura players. 25,000 strong and growing.
Actually, I've got no idea how many players there are on Dura.
That's how
25,000?
well, that's how far. I shouldn't have just said it that way. That's how far your high scores page goes. That could just be the end, or maybe I just stopped looking. I don't know.
Sure. I'm going to look it up right now because I'm not aware myself, but I think it is a very big number.
That's tight. Dude, well, congratulations on all that, and the people love it. So thank you for talking with me. We'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.